Okay, so in the last video, we outlined what we understood by the NAIRU. And what the NAIRU really is, if we redefine it, is it's the lowest level. It's the lowest level of unemployment that you can get, and before inflation starts to accelerate. A good way of thinking about it in terms of the Keynesian ADAS analysis that you've done up to this point, is to say, well, look, we know that that's essentially full employment. So there's some point, as we approach full employment, at which inflation starts to accelerate. The NAIRU is somewhere around there, is the best way of thinking about it. So I think the main thing to bear in mind is that the NAIRU is a concept. So the actual level of unemployment can be very different from the NAIRU itself. So again, we said, well, let's suppose that over here, we have say 30% unemployment, and here we have 0% unemployment. We know that somewhere in between, somewhere on that sliding scale, will be the NAIRU. In this example, let's suppose we're saying that the NAIRU is 10%. So that's not the actual level of unemployment. That's the point at which the power of firms equals the power of workers. So let's imagine that the power of firms equals the power of workers. Let's imagine that the actual level of unemployment is different from that. Let's suppose that actual unemployment is, say, 20%. What that means is that workers are in a very weak position. So unemployment's really high. Firms face little demand. There's lots of people who want my job. What's going to be happening is that wages are going to be being pushed down. Inflation is going to decrease. We said that if, on the other hand, let's change this. Let's suppose that the actual level of unemployment is down here. Demand has been rising, and the actual level of unemployment is down at 5%. At this stage, what that means is that inflation is going to start to rise. Workers are in a powerful position. Unemployment's really, really low. Therefore, they can get pay increases, which will increase firms' costs, which will therefore increase the level of inflation. So, if unemployment, if unemployment is above the NAIRU, then what's going to happen is that inflation is going to go down. If unemployment is below the NAIRU, then inflation is going to go up. So what that tells us is that the NAIRU is pretty important, because effectively it's like a shadow PPF is another way of thinking about it. It's like saying, well, look, that's the PPF for the economy. There's, say, capital goods and consumer goods. But what we're saying is that there is a limit to how close we can get, because we know that if we, that's in my example here, that's like 10% unemployment. Because we're saying that if we get any closer to full employment than that, inflation will start to rise. And therefore, the position of this NAIRU is going to be really important. So how high or how low this NAIRU is actually creates a constraint for your economy. And ideally, we would, here's a question for you. Just think about where you would want the NAIRU to be. Would we prefer the NAIRU to be at point A, or would we prefer the NAIRU to be at point B? And the answer is that we'd like the NAIRU to be as close to full employment as we possibly can, because what that means is that we can get unemployment all the way to zero without inflation starting to rise. And in a minute, we'll talk about the factors that are likely to affect how high or low the NAIRU is.